When I walked into that courtroom, my daughter Sarah rolled her eyes and leaned toward her husband, Michael, whispering something that made them smirk. But then, the judge looked up from his papers. If you're listening to this, please like the video, subscribe, and drop a comment about where you're tuning in from. His eyes locked on me, his face going still, like the past had just stepped inside.
It's her, he murmured.
The entire room froze, lawyers mid-sentence, the clerk's fingers hovering over the keys, even the bailiff shifting uneasily. Sarah's smug look faltered, and Michael frowned. They had no clue what those two words meant.
But I did. I'd lived long enough to know when fate was turning.
They thought I was just an old woman clinging to a house, stripped of dignity.
What they never understood was that I carried a story far stronger than their greed.
Every morning in Cedarwood, my day began the same. I rose at 6, filled the kettle, and reached for the chipped blue mug that had survived decades of breakfasts. The smell of coffee filled the kitchen as I checked on the African violets lined up on the windowsill. My late husband, Robert, had loved those flowers. Caring for them kept him close, even after he was gone. My life wasn't glamorous, but it was steady, stitched together with small habits. I had poured myself into raising Sarah, working nights cleaning offices, selling pies at church, and mending clothes for neighbors. To most, I was just a quiet grandmother with silver hair and worn hands. But inside, I carried years of sacrifice no one could see. That Thursday evening, I wanted things to feel special. I cooked Robert's favorite chicken and dumplings, the dish Sarah used to beg for as a child. My hands ached from rolling dough, but it was the kind of ache that felt good. I laid out my embroidered tablecloth and placed fresh daisies on the table, hoping she'd feel that this was still her home, filled with love. When they arrived, Michael sank into Robert's old armchair, switched on the TV, and acted like the house belonged to him. He was tall, sharply dressed, his suit probably costing more than my monthly pension. Sarah wore the green dress I'd given her for Christmas, her expression as cold as winter air. "Mom, we need to talk," she said, her voice clipped. Michael muted the TV but kept his eyes half on the screen. I smiled softly. "Of course, sweetheart. Dinner's almost ready. I made your favorite." "This isn't a social call," Michael cut in.
"We have important matters."
Sarah nodded. "Mom, the house is too big for you. You can't maintain it."
"Michael and I need it for our family."
My hands trembled.
"What are you saying, Sarah?"
Michael leaned forward. "We found a retirement community perfect for you. All your needs covered, friends your age, the sensible choice." "But this is my home," I said quietly. "Your father died here, holding my hand."
"Every wall carries our story."
"Memories are in the heart, not the walls," Sarah replied, her face unmoved. Michael pulled out a folder. "We've already started the paperwork. You should be grateful. I even pushed you to the front of the list." Grateful. The word stung like a slap.
"I'm not leaving my home," I answered, surprised by my own steady voice.
Michael's smile vanished. "Linda, be reasonable. You're getting older. Just last month you fell in the garden. What if no one's around next time?" I wanted to explain it was just an uneven sidewalk, but I knew it didn't matter. They'd already chosen my future without me.
"The food will get cold," I said instead, standing. "Let's eat first, then talk."
Sarah exchanged a glance with Michael, that silent look I'd seen before, the one they shared whenever I was being difficult. As I set the table, I noticed Sarah had only placed 2 plates, not 3. They hadn't come for dinner at all. A few days later, Michael returned unannounced, with a real estate appraiser in tow. The man walked through my house like it was already for sale. He measured the rooms with quick, detached movements, jotting notes on a clipboard. "The pipes are outdated," he said flatly. "The tiles are old. Full renovation needed." I stood in the corner, clutching my apron. Those tiles weren't just tiles. Robert had laid them himself when Sarah was 10. I remembered the sweat on his brow, the patience in his smile as he told me, "This kitchen will last us a lifetime." And now it was reduced to a checklist. The appraiser poked at the living room ceiling. "Water damage. Probably roof issues."
"That was from the neighbor's pipe last winter. It's been fixed," I explained. "Mrs. Carter can confirm."
"We'll still factor in roof replacement," he muttered, ignoring me. Sarah followed close behind him, nodding at his words, never once looking at me. Each comment felt like a hammer to my heart. My home wasn't sacred to them anymore.
It was only numbers and profit.
Just then, Mrs. Carter appeared at the back door with a plate of cookies. She frowned.
Linda, is everything all right?
Before I could answer, Michael stepped in. Family business, ma'am. Linda's moving to a retirement community.
Her eyes widened, searching mine for the truth.
My cheeks burned at the shame of neighbors hearing plans I hadn't agreed to.
Nothing's decided, I managed. Actually, it is, Sarah said coldly.
Mrs. Carter squeezed my hand. Call me later, she whispered, leaving the cookies behind. When they were gone, I sat in the kitchen, surrounded by the traces they left. Footprints on my clean floor, curtains pulled open, the air heavy with cologne. I reached for the phone to call Mrs. Carter, but my eyes caught Sarah's scarf draped on a chair. A light blue cashmere scarf I'd saved months to buy when she got her first teaching job. She had quit teaching soon. After marrying Michael. She said it was her choice.
I always wondered. I folded the scarf and placed it by the door. Even now, I couldn't stop mothering her.
The next week they returned with a lawyer.
Michael carried himself like he already owned the place.
Sarah wouldn't meet my eyes. The lawyer spread documents across my dining table. Mrs. Smith, these are the transfer papers. Once you sign, the property will be secure.
Everything arranged for your comfort.
I scanned the words, transfer of ownership, permanent, irrevocable. My chest tightened. This wasn't about selling. They wanted to take it.
I need time, I said, reaching for my glasses.
And my own lawyer will review these. Michael laughed.
Linda, that's unnecessary. We've taken care of it.
I still want someone on my side, I insisted. The lawyer, Gregory Parker, glanced uneasily at Michael. Mrs. Smith, the retirement spot won't hold forever. This is time-sensitive. When I refused to sign, Michael's mask slipped. You're not capable of making decisions anymore.
Sarah is your heir. She's acting in your best interest. My condition?
I snapped.
I'm perfectly capable.
The lawyer's voice dropped. If you don't cooperate, we may have to consider proceedings for incapacity. The room spun. My own daughter was helping them strip me of everything I had left.
My hands trembled, but I forced the words out. I'm not signing anything.
Threaten me again, and I'll call the police.
Now leave my house.
Michael stood, his face red.
This is a mistake, Linda. We're trying to help. Help me.
My voice was steady.
By taking my home? By calling me incompetent?
Finally, Sarah spoke, her voice tight. Mom, you're being unreasonable.
We're worried about you living alone.
If you were worried, you'd visit more than twice a year, I said. You'd call on days that weren't holidays.
You'd ask what I wanted.
Her face went pale, shame flickering for a moment, until Michael's hand on her shoulder snuffed it out. We'll be back, Linda, he said as they gathered their papers.
And next time, we won't be asking.
That night, I sat in Robert's armchair. Sleep never came.
The silence of the house pressed down like a heavy blanket.
For the first time, I wondered if they were right. Maybe I really was too old, too fragile, too useless to stand in their way. The thought cut deeper than any insult Michael had ever thrown at me. My eyes drifted to the framed photos on the wall. Sarah as a baby in my arms, Robert smiling at her graduation, our family around the Christmas table. Every picture reminded me I had lived for others, given everything. And now I was treated like a burden.
Robert, I whispered into the quiet. I don't know how to fight this alone.
The next afternoon, wandering the house like a ghost, I opened Robert's old desk. Inside the drawer, beneath faded bills and letters, I found a slim folder locked with a tiny clasp. My breath caught. In all these years, I had never seen it. Searching through the shelves, I discovered a small brass key tucked in one of Robert's favorite investment books. My hands shook as I slid it into the lock. The folder opened with a creak. Inside lay neatly stacked documents marked with Robert's initials.
Many pages were contracts and statements I barely understood.
But one stopped me cold, a will, signed 6 months before he died.
I sank into the chair and began to read.
With every line, my reality shifted.
Robert had been far more deliberate than I ever knew.
He had invested quietly for decades, buying properties when prices were low, putting money into stocks, even purchasing land outside Maplewood now worth a fortune.
The numbers made my head spin.
And then came the greatest shock, the very building where Sarah and Michael lived. They thought they were paying rent, but the building was ours. For 2 years since his death, the rent from every tenant had flowed into an untouched account in Robert's name, now mine. I wasn't just a widow clinging to one house. Robert had left me an empire. An empire Sarah and Michael knew nothing about. At the bottom of the folder was an envelope in Robert's familiar handwriting. My fingers trembled as I unfolded it, his voice rising from the page. My dearest Linda, if you're reading this, then I'm no longer by your side.
Forgive me for keeping this secret.
I wanted it to be a gift for your later years. You gave everything for Sarah and me, and I wanted you to live without fear. I must tell you, I never trusted Michael.
There is an ambition in him that worries me.
That is why I arranged the inheritance as I did. If Sarah shows you love and respect, she will share in this legacy.
If not, you hold all the power to protect yourself.
Use it wisely, not to harm, but to teach. All my love, Robert. Tears blurred the words. Even from beyond, Robert was protecting me. I had never felt so loved, and yet so devastated. How had our daughter become someone who could threaten her own mother? Carefully, I locked the folder again. Then I picked up the phone and dialed a number from one of the statements. Maplewood Financial Services. Olivia West speaking. I took a deep breath. Ms. West, my name is Linda Smith. My husband was Robert Smith. I've just found some documents I need to discuss with you.
A pause.
Then a warm voice. Mrs. Smith, we've been waiting for your call for a very long time. The next morning, I walked into Maplewood Financial Services wearing my best navy dress. The receptionist led me to a private office where a woman in her 50s rose to greet me. Mrs. Smith, I'm Olivia West.
It's an honor to finally meet you.
Her handshake was firm, her eyes kind yet shrewd. She didn't look at me with impatience, the way people often looked at older women.
She saw me.
Please, call me Linda, I said, taking a seat.
Then Linda, she smiled.
I worked with Robert for over 20 years.
He admired you deeply.
I placed the folder on her desk. I found this yesterday.
I had no idea.
Olivia only nodded.
He wanted it that way.
He knew if you discovered it sooner, you'd work yourself to the bone for others.
He wanted you to finally rest, to enjoy life.
She opened her computer and turned the screen toward me.
Let me show you what you own, Linda.
For the next hour, she walked me through assets that left me breathless. Apartment buildings, commercial properties, stocks, savings accounts, all in my name, managed quietly by Robert's trusted team. The Parkview Apartments, where my daughter lives?
I asked, still struggling to believe. Olivia nodded. Yes.
12 units, fully occupied. Your son-in-law's rent checks go straight into your account.
They have no idea.
Robert set up a management company as a buffer. Tenants deal with them, not you.
I sank back, overwhelmed. Why wouldn't he tell me?
Her expression softened. He planned to, but his health failed too fast.
In his last weeks, he made me promise to watch over you, to wait until you came to us.
She slid another folder across the desk.
There's something else.
Robert asked us to check into Michael's background.
My stomach tightened. What did you find?
Nothing criminal, but troubling patterns. Before marrying Sarah, he had large gambling debts. He's been in shady investment schemes, and now his job is unstable.
He's under financial pressure.
The pieces clicked, his push for my house, the rush to make me sign, the threats about my sanity.
He's desperate for money, I whispered. Olivia nodded. And he sees you as the easiest target. What about Sarah? Is she part of this? She follows his lead. Robert worried about her judgment with him.
I thought of my daughter's cold eyes, standing silent while Michael threatened me.
It broke my heart, but I couldn't deny it. What should I do? I asked quietly. Olivia leaned in. That depends on what you want, Linda. But you have choices now. Many choices.
As we spoke, a plan began to form. I wouldn't just protect myself. I'd reclaim my dignity, and maybe, just maybe, save my daughter from the man using her. When I left Olivia's office, I felt different. Straighter. Stronger. The weight of fear had lifted, replaced by calm determination. At the grocery store, I ran into Mrs. Carter. "Linda," she said, rushing over. "I've been so worried. What happened with your daughter and that man?" I smiled, a real smile. "Things are about to change, Dorothy, in ways no one expects." She studied me. "You look different. Like your old self." "I feel even better," I said. That night, I brewed tea and watered Robert's violets. But I no longer felt like a woman waiting for the end. I felt like a woman about to begin again. By dawn, my decision was made. So when Sarah and Michael arrived with movers, expecting me packed, they found me calmly sipping tea in my armchair. "Mom, what are you doing?" Sarah asked. "I'm not leaving," I replied evenly. Michael smirked. "Mrs. Smith, you don't have a choice." I met his eyes. "You're right, Michael. I don't. But neither do you." He waved toward the movers. "Go on, start with the living room." "Not so fast," I said, rising. From Robert's desk, I lifted a deed. "Did you know," I asked calmly, "that the apartment you've lived in for 3 years was never yours?" Michael froze. Sarah blinked. "But we pay rent." "Yes," I said. "To a management company that sends it straight to me. I own the building." The silence was heavy. Sarah read the paper again and again, disbelief in her eyes. Michael snatched it, his face pale. "This has to be fake." "Check the records yourself," I replied. His voice rose, sharp with anger. "Even if this is true, you can't stop us. We'll fight in court. You'll lose everything." "On the contrary," I said calmly. "You have 30 days to find another place. After that, the law allows me to evict you." Sarah gasped. "Mom, you can't mean that." "Family doesn't plot to steal what isn't theirs," I said firmly. "You made your choice when you tried to force me out." Michael, desperate, snapped. "Tell her, Sarah. Tell her why she can't do this." Sarah's lips trembled. "Mom, I'm pregnant." The words pierced me deeper than any threat. I would be a grandmother, yet I was finding out like this, my daughter's child used as a bargaining chip. For a brief moment, my resolve wavered. But then Robert's letter echoed in my mind, "Use it not to hurt, but to teach." I lifted my chin. "Congratulations, Sarah. But that doesn't erase what you've done." Tears filled her eyes as she turned to Michael. "Maybe we should just apologize. Try to make this right." His face hardened. "I'll never bow to her. She's manipulating you. She's manipulating all of us." I stayed silent, letting his words reveal the truth. "Michael, please," Sarah begged, clutching his arm. "She's my mother. We can't treat her like trash." "No," he barked, shaking her hand off. "You're weak if you give in." And something shifted. For years, Sarah had echoed his voice, mirrored his disdain. But now, she stared at him like she truly saw him for the first time. She turned to me, trembling. "Mom, I was wrong. I let him convince me you were a burden. I believed him because it was easier than admitting I married the wrong man." I swallowed hard. "Words are a beginning, Sarah. But only actions will prove you've chosen differently." That afternoon, after Michael stormed out and the movers left, Sarah sat across from me at the kitchen table. Her hands twisted together, her eyes red from crying. "I don't know what to do," she whispered. "You start by telling me the truth," I said. And she did. She told me how Michael had lost his job 6 months ago but kept pretending to go to work. How the credit cards were maxed. How he promised selling my house would solve everything. "He said it was for a fresh start," she admitted. "But also that you weren't safe living alone. And you believed him." "I wanted to," she said softly. "It was easier than facing what our life had become." I reached across the table and took her hand, our first real touch in years. "The baby?" I asked gently. "It's real," she said, a faint smile breaking through her tears. 3 months along. Despite everything, joy stirred in me. A grandchild. A new beginning. "You have choices to make," I told her. "They won't be easy," she nodded, squeezing my hand. "You can stay here tonight," I said. "We'll figure the rest out tomorrow." That night, as I prepared the guest room, I found myself humming, something I hadn't done in years. The house felt different with my daughter under its roof. Fragile, but real hope filled the air. I placed violets on her nightstand, then sat at Robert's desk to make a list of what needed to be done. It was the start of a long road, back to family, trust, love. For the first time in years, I wasn't walking it alone. 2 weeks passed. Sarah stayed in the guest room, often pale with morning sickness, but quieter, more thoughtful than she'd been in years. I spent those days meeting with Olivia West, learning the full extent of Robert's careful work. Each revelation felt like meeting my husband again, his foresight, his determination, his love hidden in protection, not words. Your net worth is substantial, Linda, Olivia said during one meeting. You could live comfortably for several lifetimes. The number on paper felt impossible. I'd spent decades pinching pennies, worrying over bills, never knowing Robert had built a safety net strong enough for forever.
Why wouldn't he tell me? I asked for the 10th time. She smiled gently. Because he knew you.
You'd never stop working, never stop giving. He wanted to make sure you were cared for when he couldn't do it himself. That evening, Sarah read a pregnancy book while I knitted a baby blanket.
Then the doorbell rang.
When I opened the door, Michael stood there, disheveled, rumpled, his eyes bloodshot.
The polished man in suits was gone. I need to speak to my wife, he demanded, words slurred. You've been drinking, I said firmly. This isn't the time.
He tried to push past me, but I held the door. Come back tomorrow, sober.
Mom, who is it?
Sarah asked, appearing behind me. Her face drained when she saw him.
So it's true, Michael spat. You've moved in with her. Chosen her over me. Sarah's hand instinctively moved to her stomach. I needed time to think. You weren't reasonable, Michael.
Reasonable.
He laughed bitterly.
We're about to lose everything, and you're worried about being reasonable?
I glanced at Sarah. What do you mean, lose everything? Michael raked a hand through his messy hair. The bank's closing on the cabin. What cabin?
Sarah's voice rose.
Michael, we don't own a cabin.
His eyes darted nervously. The investment property, up at Lake Madison?
Sarah shook her head slowly.
This is the first I'm hearing about any cabin.
The realization hit hard.
Michael had been hiding more than unemployment. Secrets stacked on secrets.
Perhaps we should sit down, I said, stepping aside. But only if you can be civil. He nodded stiffly, and I let him into the home he'd once tried to take from me.
We sat in the living room, Sarah perched on the edge of the sofa, me in Robert's armchair, drawing strength from its worn fabric. Start from the beginning, Michael, I said.
The whole truth this time. He looked cornered. I was trying to provide, to secure our future. By lying? By hiding money. Sarah cut in. You wouldn't understand, he snapped.
You're too cautious, too afraid of risk. Sometimes you have to gamble big to win big.
Is that what happened to your job? I asked quietly. A gamble that didn't pay off? Michael's head whipped toward me, surprise flashing in his eyes. How did you?
I know many things now, I cut in, thinking of the reports Olivia had shared. I know about the gambling debts, the failed investments, the job you lost 6 months ago.
Sarah gasped. 6 months? You told me it was just last month.
I was handling it, he insisted, fists clenching.
I had plans. The cabin was going to be our fresh start.
A cabin you bought without telling me, Sarah shot back, her voice shaking.
Using money we didn't have. I put it in my name to surprise you, he argued.
But even he didn't sound convinced. It needed work, but it would have tripled in value.
And in the meantime? I asked. How were you planning to pay for it? He looked away, and I knew. My house, I said flatly.
You were counting on selling my house to cover your debts.
It was temporary, he muttered, until my investments matured.
Sarah stood suddenly, her cheeks flushed with anger.
Investments?
You mean the horses in Atlantic City? Or the crypto scheme you lost thousands on? I watched as years of lies unraveled. Sarah's voice grew stronger while his excuses fell apart.
You used me, she said finally. You used me to get to my mother's house.
That's not fair, Michael protested.
I love you. Everything I did was for us. Was declaring my mother incompetent part of your plan too? Sarah's voice was ice. Michael had no answer. He looked smaller, shrinking under the weight of his exposed lies. I think you should leave now, I said firmly. Emily needs rest. Stress isn't good for the baby. He swayed as he stood. This isn't over. But the defeat in his eyes hollowed the threat. After he left, Sarah collapsed onto the sofa, sobbing. I wrapped my arm around her shoulders. I've been so blind, she whispered. No, I soothed, stroking her hair as I had when she was small. You trusted someone you loved. That isn't stupid. I let him turn me against you. We all make mistakes. What matters is what we do after. She looked up, eyes red but clearer, as if a fog had lifted. I don't know if I can fix this. We'll figure it out together, I promised. One day at a time. That night, after she'd gone to bed, I sat at Robert's desk, moonlight spilling over his photograph. You were right about him, I whispered. I wish you were here to help us through this mess. The next morning, while I made breakfast, the phone rang. It was Daniel Brooks, the manager at Parkview Apartments. Mrs. Smith, I'm sorry to bother you, he said, tension in his voice. But there was a situation with Mr. Carter last night. Neighbors called the police. My stomach dropped. Was anyone hurt? No, ma'am. But he caused damage, broke windows, punched holes in the walls. The police took him in, but I thought you should know, since you're the owner. I thanked him, then told Sarah when she came downstairs. Her face crumpled, then hardened. I need to see it, she said firmly. We drove in silence. Daniel met us in the lobby, keys in hand. It's bad, he warned. He was shouting about being cheated, about losing everything. The apartment Sarah had once been proud of was wrecked. Shattered glass crunched beneath our feet. Holes scarred the walls. Furniture overturned. Family photos broken. And scattered across the floor, bank statements, loan applications, betting slips. Sarah moved like a sleepwalker, touching objects as if to test their reality. She picked up a photo of their wedding day, the glass cracked across Michael's smiling face. I don't even know who that man is anymore, she whispered. As we gathered her essentials, she found a locked drawer in his desk. Using a hairpin, an old trick I'd taught her as a girl, she pried it open. Inside was a folder labeled Smith House Appraisal and Sale. Her hands shook as she spread the papers on the floor. He had it all planned, she whispered. Renovation sketches, sale estimates, even brochures for that retirement home. But there was more. Buried beneath the papers were forged documents, power of attorney forms, health directives, even statements claiming I was showing signs of dementia. I never signed these, Sarah gasped, panic rising. Never. He forged my signature. I took the papers from her trembling hands. We're taking these to the police, and to my lawyer. Back home, after calling both the police and Olivia West, Sarah and I sat at the kitchen table, shaken by the scale of Michael's betrayal. How could I not have seen this? She whispered. Manipulative people hide their true nature, I said softly. They show you what you want to see. I gave up teaching for him, she murmured. He said my career was holding us back. You can always go back, I reminded her. You were a wonderful teacher. A faint smile crossed her lips. The kids at Roosevelt Elementary still send me Christmas cards. Then it faded. But with the baby. One challenge at a time, I said, squeezing her hand. First, we deal with Michael. Then we plan your future. The doorbell rang. Olivia stood there, briefcase in hand, her face set. I reviewed the documents, she said once inside. We need to act quickly. She laid out our options. Michael could face charges for forgery, fraud, even domestic abuse after the apartment incident. But that would mean a trial, publicity, stress, dangerous during Sarah's pregnancy. There is another way, Olivia continued, opening her briefcase. Robert set up a trust with provisions for this. We can negotiate a clean break. Michael walks away from all claims, on your mother's property, on your marriage assets, on any future inheritance. In return, we settle his immediate debts with a modest one-time payment. Why give him anything? Sarah snapped.
Because trials are costly and messy, Olivia replied calmly. Sometimes the cleanest cut heals fastest. I watched my daughter wrestle with it, the practical answer against her anger. She touched her stomach. And my child's future. After a moment, she nodded. Make the offer. I want him gone. That evening, as we washed dishes, Sarah spoke softly. I keep thinking about Dad. How he knew. How he tried to protect you. Your father always saw people clearly, I said. Did he see me clearly? Did he know I'd betray you? I set down the plate and turned to her. Sarah, he loved you completely. He knew you might make mistakes, but he also knew your heart. He would forgive you in an instant, just as I have. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I don't deserve it. Forgiveness isn't about deserving, I whispered, wiping her tears. It's about love, and second chances. She leaned into me, crying for her broken marriage, her mistakes, and the years we'd lost. But also, I hoped, for the new beginning ahead. The next morning brought news that chilled me. Michael had been arrested again, caught trying to break into our house during the night. A neighbor had called the police. He'd been carrying documents, plans of the house, financial papers. He says he was just trying to get his things, the officer explained. But given the restraining order your daughter filed yesterday. Sarah's face went pale. How did he even know about it so soon? The officer shrugged. In domestic cases, information sometimes leaks. A clerk, maybe someone at the courthouse. After he left, Sarah paced the living room. He's not going to stop, Mom. He's desperate. I remembered Olivia's words about clean breaks. Maybe negotiation isn't enough, I said. We called Olivia. Within the hour, she arrived with a stern-looking man, Robert Chen, a private investigator who had worked with Robert years ago. Michael Carter has a long history, Chen explained, spreading files across the coffee table. Gambling debts, shady investments, even money missing from a past job. They let him go quietly, no charges filed. Robert uncovered this long ago, that's why he never trusted him. Sarah's face crumpled. So even the job before the last ended because of theft. Chen nodded. And the cabin? It's not just foreclosure from missed payments. He took a second mortgage without proper documentation. The bank is investigating fraud. He's drowning, I whispered. No wonder he wanted my house. We use this, Olivia said firmly. Not just to negotiate, but to end it. If Michael knows we can expose him, with enough to send him to prison, he might finally take the settlement and disappear. Sarah understood. So we lay it all out, every lie, every debt, every crime. Then give him a choice. Yes, Chen said. A meeting with his lawyer, a mediator. Take the deal and walk away, or face prosecution. After they left, Sarah sat quietly, her hand resting on her stomach. It feels so cold, using threats. Is it colder than what he did to us? I asked gently. Sometimes protection means being firm. Your father understood that. She nodded slowly. When should we do it? As soon as possible, I said. The longer this drags on, the more desperate he'll become. 2 days later, we met in a conference room at Olivia's office. Michael sat across from us, haggard but defiant. His young lawyer kept whispering urgently in his ear, looking more uneasy by the minute. Olivia laid out the evidence piece by piece. Forged papers, fraudulent loans, embezzlement from his old job that had never reached the authorities. Finally, she slid a folder across the table. Here's our offer, Mr. Carter. A clean settlement. Your debt's cleared, a fresh start fund of $50,000. In return, you give up all claims to Linda or Sarah Smith's property, sign the divorce papers, and agree to move at least 500 meters away from Maplewood. Michael's face drained as she spoke. He turned to Sarah, desperation in his eyes. Emily, you can't do this. We're having a baby. We're a family. No, Michael, she said firmly. Not anymore. You ended that when you tried to steal from my mother and forged my name. If you refuse, Olivia added calmly, we proceed with charges. Forgery, fraud, attempted theft, violation of a restraining order. And we'll provide prosecutors with documentation of your earlier crimes. His lawyer whispered frantically, but Michael only shook his head, weaker now.
You have 24 hours, Olivia concluded, rising to end the meeting. As we left, Michael called out, his voice breaking. I did love you, Sarah. In my way. She looked back once. Your way wasn't good enough. Not for me, and not for our child. Outside, safe in Olivia's car, Sarah collapsed into tears. I feel like I've been living with a stranger for 3 years. Like everything was a lie. I held her close. Not everything. The love you gave was real. The person you are, that's real. And this baby, this new life, is as real as it gets. That night, as a spring storm rattled the windows, Sarah and I sat in the kitchen sipping chamomile tea. The old house creaked around us, steady and familiar. I keep wondering what happens next, she said. After the divorce, after the baby, what my life looks like now. What do you want it to look like? I asked. She thought for a moment. I want to teach again. I miss the classroom. And I want my child to know real love, the kind Dad gave you. Not control. Not fear. Then that's what we'll build, I said. You make it sound so easy, she sighed. Not easy, I corrected. Just possible. One step at a time. The next day, Michael accepted the deal. He signed the papers and, within a week, left Maplewood. The divorce would take longer, but his consent made it a matter of time. Sarah moved fully into the house, no longer temporary but a true new beginning. We turned the study into a nursery, painting the walls soft green like spring leaves. Each brush stroke felt like healing, like reclaiming what had almost been lost. One evening, while unpacking boxes, Sarah cried out. I found her in the nursery, holding a faded quilt patterned with moons and stars. Your baby blanket, I whispered. I made it when I was pregnant with you. I remember, she said softly. You wrapped me in it after nightmares. You said it was full of love to keep the bad dreams away. And now, I told her, it can do the same for your little one. Her eyes shone. I want to be the kind of mother you were, patient, strong, kind. You will be, I promised. And when it's hard, I'll be here to remind you. As weeks passed, our lives found a rhythm. Sarah began online courses to renew her teaching certificate. I continued meeting with Olivia, learning how to manage the wealth Robert had hidden so carefully. The house Michael tried to take became a true home again, full of hope. At Sarah's 20-week appointment, we learned she was having a girl. On the way home, she was quiet. What are you thinking about? I asked. Names, she said. If it's all right, I'd like to call her Willow, for Dad, Robert. To keep him part of her life. Tears pricked my eyes. He would have loved that, and her. That evening, as I watered Robert's violets, one plant bloomed for the first time in years, a single perfect purple flower. You see that, Robert? I whispered. Life goes on in ways we never imagined. 2 months after Michael left, the phone rang. It was Robert Chen, his voice urgent. Mrs. Smith, is Sarah with you? Yes, she's right here. What is it? I've been monitoring Michael Carter. He's back in Maplewood, asking questions about you, about Sarah, about the house. I think someone tipped him off there's more than just the house at stake. Sarah's face went pale. He's coming back for more. We called Olivia at once. Her answer was immediate. We'll file for an injunction. And I think it's time to contact Richard Anderson. The judge? I asked, startled. Robert had mentioned him once in his papers, but I hadn't connected the name. Yes, Olivia said. He and Robert were close. He's been watching quietly, but with these developments, I believe he'll want to help. That afternoon, we met in Judge Richard Anderson's chambers. A distinguished man in his 60s, he had kind eyes that softened when he greeted me. Linda Smith, he said warmly. Robert spoke of you often. I'm sorry it's under these circumstances. I searched his face, trying to place him. Did we ever meet while Robert was alive? Maybe at a charity dinner. He smiled faintly. William pointed you out that night. Said you were the reason behind everything he did. This wasn't mere courtesy, he had truly respected my husband. His tone shifted to business. Olivia has explained the situation. Michael Carter's return to Maplewood violates your settlement. That gives us grounds to act. What can we do? Sarah asked, resting a hand on her belly. Legally, quite a lot, he replied. But I'm mindful of the strain, especially for you, young lady. Turning to me, he added, Robert once told me that if anything happened, I should look out for you. I stayed back because you seemed to manage well. But now I'll help, not only as a judge, but as a man who respected him deeply. We need to end this, I said firmly. Judge Anderson nodded. Here's how. Michael will be notified that his return voids the settlement. Financial support ends immediately, and charges will follow. At the same time, he'll be summoned here for a meeting, thinking he can renegotiate. Instead, he'll face a formal hearing. He'll come, Olivia said flatly. Men like him always think they can talk their way out. And when he does, the judge added, he'll find more than civil penalties waiting. Will I have to be there? Sarah asked anxiously. No, I said before anyone else could answer. You won't face him again. This is my fight. What your father would have wanted. That night, after Sarah went to bed, I wrote Robert a letter I knew he'd never read. My dearest Robert, I finally see why you made the choices you did. You knew I might need to stand on my own one day. Tomorrow, I face a battle you tried to shield me from, but I'm not afraid. You gave me more than resources. You gave me courage. I folded the letter and placed it in the box with his violets. Then I went to bed, ready. What I didn't know was that fate had one more surprise waiting. The next morning dawned bright. I dressed carefully in the blue suit I'd worn to Robert's funeral, a reminder of what I was fighting for. Sarah insisted on driving me. I won't go in, she promised. But I need to be nearby. You don't have to worry, I told her, touching the folder in my purse. Your father made sure of that. The courthouse loomed with marble columns and stern authority. Olivia met me at the entrance, calm but determined. Michael's already here, she said. He brought a new lawyer, young, aggressive. Judge Anderson is ready. She squeezed my arm. Remember, Linda, truth is on your side. In the hallway outside courtroom C, Robert Chen gave me a nod. I'll be right behind you. Inside, the room was smaller than I expected, almost intimate. Michael sat with his lawyer, whispering urgently. When the door opened, his head snapped up, eyes calculating. Olivia guided me to our table, arranging her files with precision. The air felt heavy, like the moment before a storm. At 10 sharp, the bailiff called us to rise. Judge Anderson entered in black robes, solemn and commanding. He glanced around the room, then gave me the faintest nod before taking his seat. This is a preliminary hearing regarding the violation of settlement terms between Linda Smith and Michael Carter, he announced. Both parties are present with counsel. He looked straight at Michael. Mr. Carter, you were explicitly barred from returning to Maplewood. Yet here you are. Would you care to explain? Michael's lawyer stood smoothly. Your Honor, my client had compelling reasons. We have evidence that material facts were withheld during settlement negotiations. Judge Anderson's eyes sharpened. And what facts would those be, Counselor? The true extent of Mrs. Smith's assets. We believe she and her late husband deliberately concealed wealth, defrauding my client's wife, their daughter, of her rightful inheritance. I felt my cheeks burn at the accusation, but Olivia's hand on my arm held me still. That's a serious allegation, Judge Anderson said. Do you have proof? Michael's lawyer smiled confidently. Yes, Your Honor. Bank records show large transfers before Robert Smith's death, evidence, we believe, of hidden assets that should have been in his estate. My mind raced. Robert had been so careful. What could they possibly have found? Judge Anderson studied the lawyer, then spoke deliberately. I should disclose something. I knew Robert Smith personally. We served on several charitable boards. He was known for integrity and transparency. Any claim of fraud will require extraordinary proof. The lawyer bristled. Your Honor, given your personal connection, perhaps this case should be reassigned. A fair point, Anderson acknowledged. But first, I'll hear from Mrs. Smith's counsel. Olivia rose, calm and precise. We welcome scrutiny of Robert's finances. We've prepared a full accounting. She handed a thick folder to the bench. These records show all transfers were legitimate, reported, and intended to protect, not conceal, assets.
As the judge reviewed them, the courtroom door opened quietly. I barely noticed until Anderson froze, eyes fixed on the back row.
"It's her," he whispered.
I turned to see an elegant woman in her 60s with silver-streaked hair. Something about her stirred familiarity, though I couldn't place it. The entire room seemed to pause.
The hearing continued.
Michael's lawyer argued Sarah had been coerced into divorce, that the settlement was unfair, that hidden wealth changed everything. Olivia countered with evidence of fraud, forged signatures, gambling debts, fraudulent loans. But through it all, Anderson's gaze kept drifting toward the mysterious woman. During recess, Olivia leaned close.
"Do you know who that is?"
I shook my head.
"That's Eleanor Winters,
Judge Anderson's former fiancée. They were engaged in law school, 30 years ago."
My breath caught.
30 years ago, I was a secretary at the courthouse then. A memory returned, a young law clerk, exhausted and overwhelmed, crying late one evening. I'd stayed, made coffee, helped him sort the briefs.
His name was Marcus.
Is Judge Anderson's first name Marcus?
I whispered. Olivia blinked. Yes.
Richard Marcus Anderson.
Why?
Before I could answer, court resumed. Back on the bench, Anderson's demeanor was sharper, more resolute. Having reviewed the evidence, I find Mr. Carter in violation of settlement terms. His allegations of concealed assets are without merit. Michael's lawyer began to object, but the judge cut him off.
I'm not finished.
Given the seriousness of Mr. Carter's actions, I am reinstating all criminal charges that had been conditionally dropped. Michael half rose, furious. You can't do this, it's a setup. Sit down, Mr. Carter, Anderson snapped.
One more outburst and I'll hold you in contempt.
He continued, voice steady. A permanent restraining order is hereby issued. Mr. Carter is barred from approaching within 500 yards of Linda Smith, Sarah Smith, their residence, or their property. Court officers will escort him for processing on charges of forgery, fraud, and violation of orders. Bail will be set tomorrow morning.
The courtroom erupted in whispers.
2 officers flanked Michael, who sat frozen, eyes blazing with hatred as they led him away.
I held his gaze until the door shut behind him.
Court is adjourned, Judge Anderson said. Then, more softly, Mrs. Smith, Ms. West, please remain. As the room cleared, I noticed Eleanor Winters slip quietly out.
Anderson's eyes followed her, regret flickering before he composed himself.
He stepped down from the bench.
Mrs. Smith, he said, voice gentler now, I owe you an explanation.
30 years ago, I was a clerk here, ready to give up. A kind secretary stayed late one night to help me. She brought coffee, sorted briefs, told me I had what it took.
That woman was you. You saved my career.
The memory crystallized.
Marcus, I whispered. The Harland case.
He nodded, smiling faintly.
Yes.
And today, I finally had the chance to repay that kindness. My ruling was fair, Michael Carter's crimes are undeniable, but my knowledge of you and Robert only confirmed what the evidence already showed. He glanced toward the door where Eleanor had gone. Seeing her today reminded me how one choice changed everything. She wanted me in her father's firm. I chose public service instead.
We parted ways. I'm sorry, I murmured. Don't be, he said.
I made the right choice. And now you can rest knowing this. Michael Carter won't trouble you again. The charges against Michael were serious, and with his record, he faced real prison time. As Olivia and I left the courthouse, I felt lighter than I had in months. Michael could no longer threaten us. Sarah and her baby were safe.
Our home would remain ours.
When Sarah saw my face through the car window, she burst into tears. It's over, she asked.
It's over, I said, taking her hand. He can't come near us again.
That night, after Sarah had gone upstairs to rest, I received a call.
Mrs. Smith, came Judge Anderson's voice. Forgive the intrusion. Or should I say Linda, and Marcus, at least outside the courtroom.
His tone softened. Eleanor Winters remembered you after the hearing. She thought you might join us for dinner, to talk about old times. I hesitated, surprised, but found myself smiling.
Then I'd be delighted.
Life began to settle. Sarah's pregnancy progressed smoothly. She enrolled in online courses to renew her teaching license. The dinner with Marcus and Eleanor turned out warm and reflective. Eleanor admitted with candor, "I was ambitious in all the wrong ways back then. I couldn't see the value in Marcus's public service. Now I do. I understood. We had all been changed by choices, by time. But at the core, we remained ourselves." As Sarah's due date neared, another thought pressed on me. Our house felt too large, and Robert's legacy too vast, to keep only for ourselves. Over breakfast, I shared what had been growing in my heart. "There are so many women like me," I told Sarah. "Pushed aside, made to feel like burdens. I want to create a refuge for them." Tears shone in her eyes. "Dad would be so proud." "I thought we could call it the Second Porch Foundation," I said. "Because every woman deserves another place to sit, to breathe, to belong when her first porch is taken away." "I love it," she whispered. "And I want to help." With Olivia's guidance, we bought a Victorian house at the edge of Maplewood and began renovations. Sarah designed a children's playroom and library. I oversaw the gardens. Soon, 3 women arrived. Margaret, whose son sold her home while she was hospitalized. Dorothy, abandoned after 40 years of marriage. And Sophia, who had fled with nothing but the clothes on her back. They formed a community, sharing skills and strength. Margaret untangled Dorothy's finances. Dorothy taught Sophia to garden. Sophia tutored Margaret's grandson. Watching them heal reminded me why this work mattered. The local paper ran a story. Letters poured in, women sharing their own silent battles, asking for help, offering support. It became clear this was only the beginning. "William always believed in using resources for good," Olivia told me. "He funded scholarships and programs anonymously." Warmth spread through me. Then we'll continue his legacy. More second porch homes, more women protected. On a bright June morning, Sarah's water broke. The rush to the hospital blurred into hours of waiting. Then at last, a nurse placed my granddaughter in my arms. Willow Smith, 7 pounds 3 ounces, with Robert's determined chin and Sarah's curious eyes. "Hello, little one," I whispered. "You have quite a story to inherit." Sarah, exhausted but glowing, asked softly, "What would Dad say if he could see her?" I smiled through tears. "He'd say she's perfect, and that he's been watching over us all along." Our home soon filled with Willow's cries, Sarah's lullabies, and the gentle rhythm of rocking chairs. 3 generations of Smith women finding a new rhythm together. 5 years passed in what felt like a blink. The garden in Maplewood bloomed with color, alive again. My granddaughter Willow, now 4, ran barefoot through the grass chasing butterflies, her laughter filling the yard. On the porch steps, Sarah dusted flour from her hands after preparing Sunday lunch. She had rebuilt her life, back in the classroom, thriving as both teacher and mother. The Second Porch Foundation had grown beyond anything I imagined. 3 homes now stood across the state, with a 4th on the way. Dozens of women had found refuge there, some only briefly before moving on, others staying to help shape the community we were building together. That week, an envelope arrived, an invitation to the dedication of our newest home. More women would soon find the safety and dignity they deserved. A few days later, Judge Marcus Anderson and Eleanor stopped by. Eleanor now volunteered with us, and Marcus smiled as he said, "Linda, your work has inspired us all. The Retired Judges Association wants to honor you." As Willow climbed into my lap holding a yellow flower, I realized how far we had come. Pain had been turned into legacy. Love had endured its hardest test. William's letter had told me to use power not to hurt, but to teach. That's what I tried to do. Sarah learned that respect cannot be forced, and I learned that dignity is something we must guard for ourselves. Michael served 3 years for his crimes. When released, he left the state as ordered and never contacted us again. I heard he remarried, and I truly hope he found the peace that had once eluded him. Revenge was never my goal. Only justice and protection for those I loved. I've come to understand the difference between getting older and growing old. The first is inevitable. The second is a choice. I chose to grow, to build, to turn hardship into something that will outlast me. That is the legacy William would have wanted, not just wealth, but meaningful change. Even now, I still rise at 6 a.m. I brew coffee in the chipped blue mug, tend to the violets on the windowsill. But these rituals no longer feel like lonely habit. They are reminders of the journey that brought me here, to purpose, to fulfillment, to joy. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, and if you've been through something like this, share your story in the comments.